kind of jumping around a little bit here. I covered like way too much in the last one and less in this one. But anyway, when you tell stories and you have to go against somebody else, then it's competitive storytelling. Now, what competition is competition is not necessarily about excellence. Excellence means that you do the finest job possible. Competition means that you just have to do better than the next guy. And there's one of two ways to do this. Either outperform the next person or drag that person down below you. And quite frankly, storytelling is used for that direct purpose. And so this is about a game. And you're going to be judged based on how you do against others. Like, for example, throughout my entire career, I've been great as a speaker, great as a storyteller, but who am I competing against? Engineers. I've known plenty of humanities people who can have me for lunch. They're articulate, they have physical magnetism and everything else. And so that's what I mean by when you talk about competitive storytelling. One thing I teach my students about is the art of war. And the reason why the art of war is so important, it's actually the story of startups. You cannot beat the big army, so how are you going to do it? And what the art of war really is about, it's about perception. And is a perception, well, I should say it's about perception and knowing. Meaning knowing, am I stronger than somebody else or weaker than someone else? And then it comes down to how can I get them to perceive me correctly? And so my strength against their weakness, that's the best situation. You're always looking at landscape. You always want intelligence about what you're going up against. You need data. Not only that, visualize. Think about how this is going to play out and how you want it to go. Maintain your discipline. You have your own unique story to tell. Stick with it. It's a little like when you play poker. When you play poker, a lot of times people always say, oh, it's about reading other people and all and stuff like that. But then you forget to play your hand. And so don't forget to play your hand. When I think about someone else, what's their motivation? What have they done? What information do I have about them? What are their strengths and weaknesses? Have you talked to people who know them? One thing in Silicon Valley is the people to really get to know are actually equipment vendors, because the equipment vendors, they're basically arms dealers to everybody. So they know everything about everybody. So if you make buddies up with them, they tell you all the dirt on what the other side does. Anyway, practice, but don't practice too much. Yeah, I know that's kind of a dumb metric. But you want to come across as natural, and when you practice too much, then you start to lose it. Now, one example of a person about you and your uniqueness in storytelling, and somebody who could have used that lesson, is Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was an outstanding executive. Mitt Romney, very smart guy, went to Stanford, I think he went to Harvard Business School, and he became a managing partner at Bain, which means those are the guys who basically win lottery tickets every year in terms of pay. And he was ahead in the polls. I mean, unemployment was 9%. How do you lose the presidency when unemployment is 9%? But he lost to Obama. And the biggest problem he had, I've always said that if I was Mitt Romney's campaign chairman, he would have won. First of all, he tried to fight Obama on every point, and Obama just knew more than he did. He went after things that weren't his strength. The easiest thing you can do is just say, I agree, or we're doing a great job on that. And then just add in a little something. However, I think we can do better by doing this. That's it. Don't fight them head to head, because you're not going to win. Mitt Romney's other problem is if you watch his speeches and his debating and everything else, he's very inauthentic. And that's why people don't like him. They think he's like some kind of bot that somebody created. And what Romney, and where I would have helped Romney, is actually after the election was over, they showed this video of him sitting at home, and he looked very relaxed. And he said, look, the reason why I'm running is because we have a lot of big problems that we need to take care of. And everybody feels like the solution to that problem is government. And what I'm here to say is maybe we shouldn't have government getting into every last nook and cranny of our lives. Maybe we need to figure out how to solve these problems on our own. If he had been that natural when he was running, he would have won. So, I mean, I might have voted for him. But anyway, no, the thing I didn't like about Romney is I like people who have gotten a little dirty in their lives. Basically, he was born into wealth and had wealth his entire way. I like people who can struggle because they understand you more. And that's the kind of person you want leading you. Anyway, in terms of authenticity, it comes internally and externally. Internally, mindfulness. Professor Kennedy will go over this a lot with you. He's really big on mindfulness. But mindfulness is, are you aware of the situation around you and what's going on? Can you critique yourself? What values drive you? Meaning there are some lines in the sand you have to draw that you stand for. I've talked about self-efficacy before, and how honest are you with yourself? And a lot of people have a hard time being honest with themselves. I once worked with a guy, and he had been divorced 5 times. And then he started reciting to me every reason why each of these whys were such a gigantic failure. And I just said to him, there's only one thing in common with all those 5 relationships. You. Maybe you had something to contributed to the failure in that relationship. He did not like that. But a lot of people don't like people being honest about themselves. And externally, what are things you have to think about? And that's, what is the culture? The thing is, culture is greater than legal. It's great, and it can be greater than moral or ethical. Because what culture is, excuse me, I don't know what's going on. My nose is bugging me. What contemporary culture is about is cultures are those unwritten rules that everybody follows. And so, for example, with politicians, they used to be polished. They used to try not to use profanity and stuff like that. And now they're all walking around saying, this is a shit show. Anyway, what is the history and what is the context? Meaning, what in the history of what's going on actually affects what you're doing? Also, the culture you're dealing with. Who are the stakeholders? Who are the people who actually can impact what's going to happen? And do you have emotional intelligence? Can you read what other people do? Verbal storytelling requires acting, inflection, movement, gestures. Even silence can have an impact. And these are the techniques that are also relevant to writing. Doesn't matter what kind of story it is. These are techniques that you can use. And the physical techniques that we look at is, first of all, your eyes. Do you make contact? How still is your head? Now, you don't want it perfectly still, because then you look like, there's something wrong with your neck. But your facial expressions and things like that, like many, many people have told me, smile. He said, when you smile, every muscle in your face changes. On the other hand, when you don't smile, people tell me you're one scary dude, because people can't read you. Because I have just a perfect poker face. Your voice, the volume, speed, pitch, inflection, pauses, gestures, your hands, your arms, your body. Are you in or out of control? And that's why some people are, like Jim Carrey, for example. He can't give a serious speech because his body just goes out of control. Anyway, how well do you dress? I actually came into one of my classes dressed in my 3-piece suit. And I told the students about, okay, this is how you dress, this is how you match color and everything else. And it was a 3-piece suit because I got a belly And so when you have a belly, a vest does you wonders. Vests also look distinguished. In terms of motion, your feet and legs, walk around a little bit. Watch how people give speeches. But is everything in sync? And this is what actors do. Your story has points. Your points need transition. Your voice, your inflection, and your silence makes points. And then physically, how do you interact with the audience? When you're really into good speaking, you feel the audience and you feel people. Are you looking at the audience? Are you looking at only one side of the room? And that's why you have to make it a point that even though you're talking to one side of the room, rotate, go to the other side of the room, go to the middle of the room. So you're kind of like a Terminator robot. But anyway, this I won't go through because I will let you go through it on your own. But on YouTube, if you look at this, it is this song. And what is this song? Be Tender With My Love by the Bee Gees. The Bee Gees, actually before the disco age, were one of the top pop bands in the world, behind the Beatles, the Beach Boys. Frankie Valli, he was number 3. And then you had the Bee Gees. And one thing about, if you listen to those old Bee Gees songs, and it's really funny because I was in Sprouts Market and the song came on, and all of a sudden, all these people around me started singing it. They knew the song, and that says quite a bit. But what the Bee Gees do is they have very lovely melodies, very smooth, and what they do is they hit a crescendo. And the big crescendo in this song. And so listen to their voices. Listen to how the melody speeds up. You made a promise, you'll always love me forever. Love songs, naturally, are a big chunk of music. This next one, I consider this song to be the greatest love song ever written. It's called A Rainy Night in Soho by the Irish band The Pogues. Now, one thing about this story is it really is in the Irish tradition, because it is a story. If you look at this, there is no refrain like you see in songs. And each one of these is like a paragraph. When you write well, every paragraph you write should be a story on its own. You could take the rest of the paper out, and that one paragraph should be able to stand up on its own. If it doesn't, then you're doing something wrong in your writing. But how does this song start off with? I've been loving you a long time, down all the years, down all the days. What he's basically saying is he's reflecting on his relationships. And naturally, it has its downs and has its ups. But the little stories it tells, we watched our friends grow up together and we saw them as they fell. Some of them fell into heaven. Some of them fell into hell. And that's that you have friends that do glorious things and that stay in touch with you and all. And then you have those people that you just lose. And this next stanza, I took a shelter from a shower and I stepped into your arms. On a rainy night in Soho, the wind was whispering all its charms. There are those magical, romantic moments where you just know. And so, how does the song end? First, it talks about reflection. Here are the reflections, and then the song ends. That now the song is nearly over. So, they're towards the end of life. They're old. And we may never find out what it means. Still, there's a light I hold before me. You are the measure of my dreams, the measure of my dreams. Here's one thing about writers. We all steal from each other. And it's okay to steal from each other. But when I wrote my wife cards or love letters or something like that, I use lines like this, the measure of my dreams. I use E. Cummings poetry. The voice of your eyes is deeper than all roses. I mean, yeah, I can be kind of sappy at times, but there's a reason for the sappiness. There's an inspiration for it. Remember, your innovation is a gift of song and music because it's your story. Now, another example of a story is Kokomo. Okay. I was in I had a business trip to Kokomo, Indiana to talk to DuPont Photomass, and I went with uh let's see, 5 of us. And so we get in this rental car and it's the dead of winter. We have a really good meeting and they said, "You guys need to get out of here. There's a storm coming." And what happens? We get like 2 or 3 miles outside the facility and our rental car breaks down. And we're on this back road. There's nobody else around. There's no houses, no buildings. Snow is coming down. The wind is blowing. And here we are dressed like businessmen. We had our dress shoes on. We had trench coats on. We're not equipped for any of this. And so it's like, oh crap, what are we going to do? And so we decided, look, we could sit here in this car and wait till, the gas runs out and then the heat will go out. On the other hand, we could get buried. And not only that, we didn't know how good the car was, meaning we could have died from carbon monoxide poisoning. And so after debating all of this, we decided, something, we're just going to have to walk. Well, one gentleman was a lot older than us, and he was a big chain smoker. And I just said to him, "Jerry, well, if we don't make it, we're probably going to have to come back to the car, and we could be stuck here for a very, very long time. But don't worry, if we get hungry and you croak because you froze to death because we abandoned you, don't worry about it. You're such a heavy smoker. If we took a bite out of you, it'd probably just be a mouthful of soot." And the next thing you know, he's just swearing at me and 4-letter words are flying and everything else. So then we started walking, and the weather really was bad and our feet were freezing. We hadn't gotten that far. And what did I do? I started singing the song Kokomo. And let's see, I have the raw singing talent of John Wayne. But there we are. I'm walking along at the front of all these guys saying, "But everybody knows there's a place called Kokomo." And next thing I knew, they were all singing along with it. And they even sang the falsetto parts in falsetto. And we did make it. We did get help. We did get Jerry. And later on, what ended up happening is my boss said, "Steve, I know what you did." He said, "If Jerry was left there alone," he said, "he probably would have froze. And so what you tried to do is get him angry, because when you're angry, your blood starts flowing and stuff like that. And you were confident enough you would get back to him in time." And that's why I told Jerry that little story about how we wouldn't eat him if we all croaked. And so the thing is, within your stories, you have stories within stories. And within that story also is a story about singing the song Kokomo. And in a lot of ways, it was one of the best leadership moments I've ever had in my career. The thing is, your stories are self-contained. They exist as an entity on their own. And so your journey has to make sense. When you close, your purpose, do you leave the audience built up? Have you moved them to a different place? And what part of you is in your closing? And remember, you're all artists. It's all there inside of you. You just have to give yourself a chance.